Warmest greetings. As warm as I can be, warm greetings to you. Thank you for being part of our CVUUS service, Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. We are progressive, quirky, fun-loving, social justice-loving people, and I hope that if you are visiting with us, you'll be as excited as they are. Today is the waxing gibbous moon, known as the Alamikos moon, the greeting moon, by Western Abenaki people. In the greeting moon, there's a few things I need to weave into our greeting, and then we're going to greet each other. First, if there's something that's on your heart and mind that you could benefit from some care, then fill out a pink card, and there's a confidential envelope in the back to place that and give us a chance to care for each other. The yellow cards are good for milestones and passages, celebrations, and also things that are weighing on your heart. Put those down as milestones and passages. In the offering plate, we will collect them and then share them after the offering. Turn off your cell phones. There's announcements in the bulletin. You are amazing people. That's my formal greeting, abbreviated. Now, the Abenaki greeting during this moon is to greet everybody with the phrase, I am sorry if I have offended you in any way. Please forgive me. So our special guest is Vera Longtoe Sheehan. They go by they, them pronouns, and they are our guest speaker. They are the leader of the Abenaki Arts Council and the Education Center for Abenaki Arts. And so I want to first say, if I have offended you in any way, then please forgive me. And would you kindly turn to those around you and greet each other on this greeting moon with saying, if I've offended you in any way, please forgive me.
Thank you so much for participating in that tradition with us. Kwekwe Nedabak Undelawizi, Vera Longtoe Sheehan, Nia Elnu, Wabanaki. Hello, friends. My name is Vera Longtoe Sheehan, and I'm a citizen of the Elnu Abenaki tribe in southern Vermont. I'm very excited to be here with you all today for this celebration. The Abenaki New Year begins with the first new moon after winter solstice. And on this special time, families visit each other. You visit your friends, your family, with that same greeting that LIam just shared. And today, what we do instead, or in addition to, is we pick up these cell phones we all carry around and send out emails to folks that maybe we haven't connected with in the last year. So that's a new addition to a very old tradition, and something you might want to share in. I'm going to hand this back over to LIam.
Well, we have two songs to call us together. The first song is a calling in song provided by Abenaki friends, and we have a video of that. And then we're going to do our land acknowledgement and then have our own gathering song. So first, let our Abenaki friends call us together. That is a way that the Abenaki would call us together. And we acknowledge that we are gathered on Western Abenaki land, seized from them by European colonizers, and many of us are beneficiaries of that seizing and that colonizing. And the Abenaki have not benefited by that seizing. And so when we say, if there is anything that I have done that has offended you, please forgive me. In part, I say that knowing my privileged background and the history between us. How is forgiveness flowing through that? Our opening hymn is "This land is my land. This land is your land." And there's a couple of verses written by Pete Seeger with an acknowledgement that the land we're living on has been stolen. And there's one verse in there from me, which is more specific to the Abenaki. So we're going to start with "This land is your land, this land is my land," the traditional verse, and then keep thinking about it.
Okay, I have to stand on this little step because I'm small, and this is an immense podium. Thank you for that song and for opening with the idea of this land is made for you and me, but truly for you and me and everyone. And let's keep that idea in our hearts today as we move through the service. Before we go any further, I want to speak briefly about Abenaki history. I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with who the Abenaki are, so I thought that might be a good starting place. The Abenaki people are the Native American people or indigenous people of this land, which is referred to as Indakina. That's not the name of the land, but it's a word that means our homeland. Abenaki people have lived in this place and are intimately familiar with the land, the waters, and all of the animals and plants in this place, and have been building that relationship for more than 10,000 years. Today, there are many, many Abenaki tribes, more than people think. People hear the word tribe and automatically assume that everybody who is Abenaki is part of the same tribe. Not necessarily true. There are many Abenaki tribes. So in Canada, there are 2 Canadian recognized tribes. Here in the United States, we have 4 state recognized tribes in Vermont. That's the Elnu, the Kawasuk, the Missisquoi, and the Nulhegan. And there are also Abenaki tribes in Vermont and New Hampshire with no recognition, meaning there's no relationship at all with the government. That is a very long story, and perhaps we can talk about that on another day. Some really important things to think about is that each one of these tribes is sovereign, meaning they each have their own very unique history. Some of it is shared, some of it not so much, because of geography and time, which we're going to be talking about in colonization. These tribes have lived in geographically dispersed areas, so they each have unique histories. They each have the right to determine their own rules. They each have the right to determine their own citizenship. And what that means is no one tribe can tell another tribe what to do or control them in any way because they're sovereign. And they have the right to self-determination in that way. The other thing to bring up is that there are Abenaki families and individuals that do not belong to a tribe at all. So they might have that heritage, but they don't belong to a tribe for whatever reason. There are many different reasons for that. Once again, that's a whole nother conversation, but I just want you to be aware that there are many different ways of being Abenaki. There are many different tribes. And hopefully those are future conversations we can have in the future. Thank you so much. I'm going to hand this back over to LIam.
Our chalice, we're going to do our chalice lighting, and then the children or young people could come forward for our time for all ages. But first, our chalice lighting. Is from an Abenaki, an Ojibwe reading from our hymnal. And so if you would read it with me. We know that we are the ones who are divided, and we are the ones who must come back together to walk in the sacred way of light and peace. O Sacred One, teach us love, compassion, and honor, that we may heal the earth and heal each other. So Vera would like to invite young people, if they would like to sit up front up here, nestling with Dee and Ellen, and in order to hear a story, the creation story. And we wanted to create a little bit more of a storytelling kind of space. And anybody else who doesn't want to behave like an adult.
They're also, can you hear me? This mic isn't working. Testing? No. Let me try the other one. Can you hear me now? Oh, thank you so much. Good morning. How are you? Is the mic working? Okay. Okay. Good morning. It's so good to see you all. And if anyone else wants to come forward, we have some extra chairs up here if you'd like to get a little bit closer. So I'm going to add a little bit more information about the story that I'm going to tell you. Yes, it's part of a creation story, and we don't have time for me to tell you the whole story. So I'm going to tell you a little piece of it. I could spend an hour or several hours telling this story, and we're only going to hear 3 to 5 minutes. So we're going to condense this, so I won't be able to tell you every detail of everything. So all different cultures of people have stories that tell you how they began or how their world began, or maybe explain natural things in the world, like how the mountains were made, how the rivers were made, and things like that. This story explains how the world was made, and this story is shared by many Native American peoples across North America. Especially, I hear this story a lot with Algonquin-speaking people, so people that speak languages that are very similar to Abenaki. Aqua, as it was told to me, a long time ago. Double Duck, the creator, the being who made everything, was sort of flying through the universe with some friends, Migeso the eagle and Tolba the turtle. And they were flying for a long time, and they needed a rest and maybe something to drink because they'd been flying for a long time. So they're flying through the sky, a place we know today as, has anyone heard of the Milky Way? Okay, good. So they're flying through the Milky Way, and they're looking for a place where they can rest and maybe get something to drink. And they stop in this very cold place that we may see every night, even to this day. And they rest there. They lay down, they go to sleep. Creator puts their face down and leaves an imprint in the ground. That imprint is still there when we look up in the sky at night. Do we ever see a face up in the sky? Maybe there's a white thing up in the sky that sometimes looks like a crescent, or maybe it's a circle or half a circle. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? The moon, exactly. So there's that imprint there. And then they keep on moving, and they see this other place. And this place looks like a little blue marble in the distance. Do you know what that place could be? It could be Mars or Earth, yeah. So they come to Earth, but it's not Earth yet. It's a place that has lots and lots and lots of water. So they finally get that opportunity to get a drink. But they get there, and there's so much water, there's no place to land. And they think, what are we going to do? And Tolba's like, no problem, I got this. And Tolba lands in the water. And Tolba can like swim in the water and float, right? Have you ever seen turtles in ponds? They can swim, they can float, they can be there for a very long time. So Tolba lands. And after Tolba, the turtle lands, then Megesso can land and sit on Tolba's back. And then there for a long time. And it's time for that drink. So there's all this water, but there's nothing to drink from. Tolba's like, don't worry, I got it. Tolba pulls off a piece of their shell, scoops up some water, and then Megesso can drink from the shell. The creator is getting busy on the side, has this, working with this magic dust. And as the creator makes things, when the creator's done, kind of rubs their hands together like this to clean their hands, and magic dust falls from their hands. And with that magic dust, these creatures start to fall. Some of those creatures are moose. Have you heard of moose? Moose is an Abenaki word. Did you know that? Can you guess what moose might mean? A big thing with horns, yeah. So moose is the word moose that we still use to this day. And the rabbits are falling and all the different creatures in the forest, but the problem is they're falling toward the water. So they're getting gathered up, and Megesso is gathering them and putting them on Tolba's back. So they have a problem they're faced with. What are they going to do? It's time to go, but they can't leave all of these creatures there in the water. So once again, they find themselves thinking and trying to find a solution. And what do you think Tolba says? Don't worry, I've got an idea. Exactly. Thank you so much. And Tolba decides to stay in this place and to be there for these creatures. Tolba scoops the mud from under the water up and puts it on their back. She fills her whole back with mud and forms something very special that we're standing on today. And all the buildings are on, all the trees are on, all the grass is on. What do you think that is? The ground, yeah. Tolba the turtle creates what Native American people call Turtle Island. And that's a pretty universal name that's used to describe the Americas. And if you ever take time to look at a map, or if you Google and look for Turtle Island, you're going to find an image where somebody has drawn the map and they draw the outline on the map, and you can see Tolba is still there. What do you think of that? It was a good story. Thank you. I appreciate it. What can we learn from that story? What do you think? Did we learn anything from our friends, from the creator and Tolba and Megesso? Maybe about what to do. Oh, I have help.
There are a lot of solutions for life.
Yes, there definitely are. Does anyone else want to share what they learned?
To take care of the earth.
To take care of the earth. And what else should we take care of?
Animals.
And we should take care of the animals.
And life.
And life. Anyone else? Do you think that story could have happened in 1 or 2 days or in a week, where they fly through the whole universe and they create the world that we know? No, I see everyone shaking their heads no. Why do you think that?
Well, it's kind of like a lot of things happened. They were flying through the universe, and you can't really do that very fast. and they like created the ground.
Anyone else?
To make a big project, it takes time. They were flying for a very long time, and I think the Earth was alive like 2 weeks ago, so I don't think they could have made it like a week ago.
Anyone else? So our friends here have some very good ideas about the things we can take away from this story. There are a lot of solutions if we take time to work with our friends and our family and think out what problems we might have and how we may fix them and change them. The earth wasn't built in a day, and time is different. And people can have different perspectives of what time is. The Creator could fly through the universe in a day. I'm not so sure I can. When I flew to California, I spent half a day or so between the airport and the airplane. So people can have very many different perspectives about time. And today we're going to be talking more about time and what that looks like for different cultures and what it can look like, and how changing how we think about time can affect the environment and human relations, and with the land, the water, the air, and everything on the planet. So I want to say thank you so much to all of you for coming and sharing this moment with me. And I hope I get to see you again soon. Thank you.
And so now we have a chance to sing the children out, singing Peace, Salam, Shalom. 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 Peace, Salam, different UU organizations. Today's organization is DRUM, which stands for Diverse Revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministry. And it's a way of affirming and empowering people from diverse backgrounds and celebrating their gift and their presence, from Native Americans to a wide variety. So give as generously as able as we affirm the diversity within who lives on Turtle Island. a couple milestones and passages that have been shared. Rebecca Burton brings the note, please hold the people of Palestine in your hearts and minds today. They are cold, hungry, traumatized, maimed, and in great pain. Collectively, please, let's send them our love and hope for their peace and survival. Thank you, Rebecca. And Marnie Wood shares this milestone and passage. The Thursday edition of the Addison Independent, January 18, has a column by Hannah Sessions. And her words share the milestones of women being productive in leadership and ownership, positive and so important regarding stewardship of the land, and women who for many generations are caring for this land. And truly, it's about time for this evolving reality. So thank you. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Marnie, for affirming Hannah's words. I've also invited Vera to share any milestones and passages.
So I'm going to share a few milestones and passages from the American Abenaki community. Some sort of recent, some not so recent, but you may not have heard of them, so I'm going to share them anyway. Recently, the Nulhegan Abenaki tribe was given 350 acres of land, and so they now have this one small piece of homeland back. And then the Elnu Abenaki tribe, which is in southern Vermont, about, oh gosh, I guess it's been a year or two now. It's been longer than I thought it was until I thought about it. But they did fundraising and were able to purchase a piece of land that have sacred petroglyphs on them. And there are burial sites associated with that space. So that's really important. So that's the equivalent of, I guess, as close as you could be to being in a church space. And there are many sacred spaces like that throughout the Abenaki homeland, from Massachusetts through Vermont, New Hampshire, parts of New York, Maine, and up into Quebec. And lastly, no, maybe not lastly, I have two more. As we're moving through Alamikos, which is the greetings moon, we're now moving into the next moon in a couple of weeks, which is called, in English, is called Falling in Pieces Branches Maker. So the moons in Abenaki basically explain what's sort of happening at that time. So as it gets super cold and the wind is blowing and all the branches are breaking off. So we're moving through time. And January also marks a very special for the Vermont Abenaki Artist Association. It's the month we were officially formed in 2011 and 12, when 4 Abenaki tribes were recognized in the state of Vermont. We formed the Vermont Abenaki Artist Association, and I was asked to serve the community in the capacity of the director. So January is a pretty special time for us. Thank you. Okay. So now it's time for contemplation, and there are going to be some slides, and I'm hoping to direct your attention toward these beautiful slides that show water iced over with the ice melting. Sometimes it's freezing, sometimes it's melting. If you could take a look at these slides, these beautiful pictures of earth and water, and think about the complexity of time and how it has so many different meanings to different people. In our everyday lives, we think about time in terms of the immediate. Tomorrow, next week, next month, maybe next year. And let's take a few breaths and let go of that, because when we think of the immediate, it can sometimes be a little stress-inducing. So if everybody can take a couple deep breaths. and release. Once again, deep breath. And one more. And instead, let's think about deep time and what can change and what can happen in deep time. Well, our elders tell us that all things resolve themselves over time. Sadly, we tend to want those things resolved very quickly, but it doesn't always happen that way. So if we think back to the creation story and how that didn't happen all in one day, hopefully all other things, good things can happen. Hopefully peace, unity, and love for all living beings. And let's think about deep time, unity, love, and caring.
As some of you are aware, I've had 60 laps around the sun as of today. And when I saw that on the worship calendar that we didn't have a speaker for January 21, I'm the one who suggested that we invite an Abenaki leader to share the service with, because I was interested in us talking about how we measure time on a day that's important in how I measure time. Though my mom said that it wasn't a good day. Joseph Bruchac wrote a book, 13 Moons on a Turtle's Back, that when I was a children's librarian meant a lot to me, and I started introducing to children different ways of measuring time. And then I moved to Vermont decades later, and I find that he's just across the pond. He's on the other side of Lake Champlain. And I saw him this summer at the Abenaki Heritage Week, and he wrote another book. It's called A Year of Moons. It's kind of like the adult version of 13 Moons on a Turtle's Back. And I meet with Vera saying, so do you have a reading that you would like? And she said, they said, yeah, why don't you read the introduction to A Year of Moons? Have you heard of that? One of the things that the native people of this continent found curious about Europeans was their concept of something that they called time. To some of us, it seemed as if these white people worshipped it in the forms of the clocks and watches that appeared to rule their days. That was especially obvious, especially in the way the Catholic missionaries had to pray at certain times of the day, as opposed to praying and giving thanks constantly throughout the day, which was more the indigenous way of doing things. My own native ancestors had to make up a new word for those tick-tocking devices to which our new neighbors were constantly paying attention to. So the word for clock in Abenaki became papizokwazik, the thing that makes much noise but does nothing useful. It just didn't make sense back then, nor to some of us still today. Take, for example, even more abstract concept of what is called daylight saving time, when those clocks would be moved an hour ahead and then an hour back, depending on what part of the year it was. It made as much sense as cutting off the end of a piece of rope and tying it to the other end. And then after a year had passed, untying it and fastening it back to the other end where it had originally been connected. Among most of our tribal nations, the most common way of marking the course of the year was through the moons. Its waxing and waning in the night sky was visible to everyone, and it was a clearly experienced regular period of time from one moon to the next, 28 days, with a total of 13 full moons making up 1 year. It was also obvious from close observation of the natural world that different things happened during different moons that varied from place to place because of the differences in climate, as well as all the other aspects of the ecosystem. So each of those moons had a descriptive name, though the names would be different from one part of the continent to the next. The salmon were never running on the Great Plains, and there were no buffalo calves shedding their winter fur on the Pacific coast. Those moon names reminded people, though, of what they should be doing or aware of, as well as to be thankful for the many gifts that are part of the great cycle of the seasons and what these gifts were bringing them again and again.
Thank you so much to my new friend Liam, and happy birthday. It was really an honor to be asked to be here today, especially since it's a birthday present. And I'm so grateful for that reading from Joe Burchak. He's an elder in the Abenaki community. He's somebody that I have always looked up to for as long as I can remember. And he is such a strong culture bearer. The traditions he carries, they're amazing. And I never get tired of listening to him. He has a new book coming out. I just want to let you know his book, Dawnland, which he wrote many years ago, is being re-released. So look out for it. You will love it. So, I was asked to talk about the politics of time, and I'm going to switch mics. How do you make this work?
They're adjusting right now. There we go.
Okay, thank you. This one is a little bit easier for me. So I was asked to talk about the politics of time, which is a super interesting topic. And if you read the description, it says that we'll be reflecting on racial politics and environmental ethics of how we tell time. I'm going to make it simpler than that. I'm just going to say we're going to look at different perspectives of time and how, when we embrace the diversity of ways we look at time, it can be life-changing, not just for us, but for the planet. We heard from Joe Burchak about how Abenaki people had months named after different actions that were happening through the observations people were making of actions happening. The moons told us what activities should be done during particular times. And I'm not going to say the names of the months in Abenaki, rather, I'm going to say them in English for brevity's sake. Starting with this month, Greetings Maker, or the Forgiveness Moon. Next month is Falling in Pieces Branchers Maker. After that, Spring Maker, Birds Return Maker, Melt Maker, or Spring Moons, followed by Moose Maker. After that, we have the Sugar Moon, followed by Field Maker, which is the moon when we plant. After that, the Hoer Moon, which is also known as a Strawberry Moon. June is the month when we get to harvest the first fruit of the summer, strawberries. They're pretty amazing. After that, we have the Hay Cutter Moon, Meal Maker, or Eating Moon, which is harvest time. There's the Harvester Moon, Corn Maker, Leaf Fall Maker, Freezing Current Maker, and Winter Making, or Great Moon, which is when we get the winter solstice. That's sort of how the Abenaki year looks. And let's think about time. So in Western culture, we're taught that time resembles things we know as seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, years. We can go on and on. But there was already a way of telling time in this place long before anyone ever came from Europe. However, there are changes that were forced upon all of the people in North America, all of the people that were here. And today we all follow that same system, generally speaking. However, there is such a thing in Indian country called Indian time. It's when you plan an event. When are you going to show up? I don't know. When does it start? Oh, I don't know. I guess in the afternoon. When in the afternoon? I don't know. When people arrive. So there's not that strong sense of urgency or anxiety. If people are running late, you know they're going to get there. If they said they're coming, which is very different sometimes when we work with our partner organizations and they want to have a schedule. Okay, we're going to do this at 9:05. This is at 9:10. At 9:10, 9:15, 9:20. Oh, wait a minute. It's 9:16. Where are they? So time can cause anxiety sometimes. What about when you're in school? Remember due dates, right? Your homework is due, your big project, your final project, or at work. We have to launch this on Friday. What if it's not ready on Friday? Is it better to get it right or to get something out into the world? These are all things we need to think about with the politics of time. And as a reminder with what Joe said, the clock is just a thing that sits on the wall and tells us what to do. Some people say it's the thing that sits on the wall and does nothing useful, so it depends on who you talk to. And so there are these different other ways of telling time. We can think about the seasons of life. We're born. We start moving around. We're toddlers. We grow up into children, into adolescence. We move into adulthood. We become parents. We become grandparents. We become elders. We become a memory. And we're still here as long as people speak our names. We're still remembered. And that's part of time as well. When we start talking about deep time, when we look at history, public historians will tell you that public memory lasts about 100 years. How long do memories last in your family? Think about that. I have stories in my family that go back eons. And that's different for everybody's family. We also observe the seasons. As the seasons change, spring, summer, fall, winter, and I already explained the moons. So what happens when we start to look at deep time? We heard about creation earlier. So we're talking about more than 10,000 years, possibly longer. 10,000 is a very conservative estimate. It's actually based on archaeology. But even when we look at the archaeology of this place and the geology of this place, we know it's changed drastically over time. And those changes, when we go back in deep time and we look at the ice age in this place and the global warming that caused the ice sheath to melt and to retreat, and the geological actions that helped to let the Champlain Sea flow out, also wiped out evidence of earlier existence in this region. So let's turn and think about worldview. Within the Abenaki worldview, sustainability is very, very important. So if we think about sustainable development, the World Commission on Environment and Development defines sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So this brings up the question, who has moral standing? Who do we think about in the future? With the way we look at time currently in the Western world, it's an anthropocentric view of moral standing. Nature serves humans, and the animals and the creatures and the land and the air and the waters don't have moral standing. What if we turn that around and we start looking toward an Abenaki worldview, which is more biocentric? And when I say biocentric, we're looking at a larger view of time and of beings. We go beyond me. We go beyond our clans, our nations, humans, and we start looking toward the animals, life, and ecosystems. And what if we think about biocentric egalitarianism and start thinking that all life, all beings have the same rights as humans? It kind of changes how we view things, changes how we look at time, which is why when you look into the Abenaki community, there are some cultural concepts which I think you'll find to be very interesting. One is the idea of all of my relations. And when you think about all of my relations, think about yourself and being related to, think about yourself as being related to all the plants, all the animals. When you look out the door and you see the birds, when you look out the door and you see the deer in your yard, when the trees are blossoming and you see those blossoms and you know they're flowering and they're going to be bearing fruit in the summer. When you walk into the forest, you may see some forested areas that look kind of snaggly and unkept. Then you might walk into other areas and they look different. They look clear. The trees are straighter. They're not packed as tight. Because among many other things, the Abenaki in this worldview took care of everything. We took care of the forest, plants, and animals. Most of the rules we have in conservation today about hunting come from Native American worldviews. So the limits on how many deer you can hunt, for instance. Not to shoot a pregnant doe, right? Not to hunt unless you need something. But beyond that, Abenaki people took care of the forest. When you see those nicer pieces of forest, it's because the Abenaki people lived in a reciprocal relationship with the land and took care of the land. And great care was taken to take care of the land. When you saw there were too many trees coming up in one place, some might get moved to make room for the sun to come through. So when we think about all of my relations, it kind of makes decision-making a little bit more complicated. We don't make quick decisions. We can't say, oh, we have to have a town meeting and decide what we're going to do about this waterway, by this day, because that's a decision that has a lot of implications. There's another concept, which is far more complicated, called the 7 generations. And this concept is shared across Turtle Island with many different communities. 7 generations is pretty much what it says. When you're thinking about sustainability, that you consider 7 generations. Some communities may have a discrepancy in how they view 7 generations. Some say it's the 7 generations in front of us. Some say we're looking back 7 generations to see what ancestors would have done. And other people think of 7 generations with our living generation in the middle. And how many generations can you know in your lifetime? Usually about 3 generations. And if you're in the middle of that, that's 7 generations. So when something important comes up and you think about how to take care of anything, whether it be your family, your work obligations, maybe your house, your land, you think about that 7 generations. And if you're in the middle and you're thinking back even to your great-grandparents, what would they have done? And you think about what you want for your great-grandchildren, it changes the way you think. There's no time for quick decisions. And if you're looking at 7 generations, that's a lot of time. That's definitely not something where we're thinking about minutes and hours. We're thinking more long-term. And we can think even farther out than that. I'm just giving some examples to put things out there so we can start thinking about these ideas and how things could be different. We're always probably going to need minutes, hours, and time markers because they've kind of become the universal Western view. But can we add these new ideas? Can we add concepts like 7 generations to our regular practices? Can we add all of our relations to our daily living? If we add this philosophical worldview that embraces deep time and a relationship with the land and the environment and animals and people, how does that change everything we do? I invite you to think about that for a little while. And I'm going to leave you with a thought. How will you base life in the future? On your short-term goals with quick gains, or will you start thinking more about deep time that surpasses your own life, but will preserve all of our relations? Thank you very much.
Our song of response is When We Are Gathered, 359. In our Pathways for Connection, I'm going to briefly tell you that you can maybe be seated. Yeah, sorry. Briefly tell you that you may be seated. That there are 3 different organizations that are listed in the bulletin, but their contact information, their website addresses will be on our website. And you can be in contact, touch base with the Abenaki Arts Council and also the Abenaki Arts and Education Center. They do virtual classes. And also the Heritage Weekend, put that on your calendar for the Abenaki Arts Council at the Maritime Museum in Virgins. I need to turn it over to Carrie Duquette Hoffman for directions on what's next.
Thank you. So you may see on the wall there that we've been busy talking about stewardship this weekend. Stewardship is so much bigger than I thought it was before this weekend, and I've been thinking about stewardship quite a lot. So I thank everyone who's been part of this so far and want to extend an invitation from 12 to 1 to folks who have already been involved to learn a little bit more about what we've said and what Mark Ewert, the consultant we've brought, has heard from us, and a lot of deep listening that he's done. And for anyone who hasn't had a chance to come yet to talk about this concept of stewardship and how we carry our congregation and our society forward for generations. Some logistics on that. There are, I would say, heavy snacks, light lunch downstairs. So thank you so much, choir. And as always, thank you to the coffee hour folks. That deeply appreciate that. And we'll have those come back up here around 12 o'clock. We're going to try to remind you to come up. So I know it's really hard to leave coffee hour, but we're going to try and make it happen. And we'd love to have your time for just an hour. And again, thank you to everyone who's already participated.
Okay, so we skipped ahead a little bit to hear that message, and I'm going to bring us back a little bit to the closing remarks. First, I want to say thank you so much first to LIam, and also to the congregation, everyone who came out today, and everybody who's going to be watching online in the future. Relationship building is so important, and you may have got the idea from my messaging that there is no room in my heart for hate. And I believe so strongly in relationship building, in peace, and how do we move forward. Politics are not necessarily my thing. How people move forward, how we build those relationships are really the most important thing, which is why I asked LIam if we could add a bunch of different organizations to the landing page for today. So when you go there, you'll find contact info, the websites for the 4 state recognized Abenaki tribes, as well as all of our nonprofit organizations. So there's a whole big list there, and there's also, I think there's a little blip about what the nonprofits do. And once again, please keep thinking about time with your family and friends and how important that is in self-care for everybody. Time, it's so cliche, time is precious, right? But it's so important. And let's keep on thinking about ideas and ways where we can build these relationships, not just with each other as humans, which is definitely important. How can we find more ways for peace and exchange, and how can we start working and thinking it more in that deep time format of all my relations and 7 generations to help sustain all the beauty we have in this world. Okay, thank you so much.